So anyway, let's talk about the actual plot.
Let's talk about the actual plot. Oh, you mean the plot you didn't even understand and couldn't even be bothered to read the title call? You're gonna speak with authority on a plot that you claimed yourself you don't understand? Interesting.
Mission failed. We'll get them next time.
Let me get this straight. It took you 20 years to actually piece together the plot, and yet you still don't understand it? And yet, you're gonna speak with authority on it? You see why people suck all over Red Letter Media's dick? You can't take their word for it. There are people like Cosmonaut in the Star Wars community who don't understand the plot of things like A Phantom Menace, yet they want to speak with authority on it, and yet they don't even understand the plot themselves. He even asked on Twitter if others understood it. Most of them didn't. So those people are also trashing it like many others in the community, and they don't even understand the plot themselves. Here's an idea. Before you trash an entire legacy or film, don't you think you have to at least have a basic understanding of its plot before you decide to trash it? Because if I get on a movie or game and say it sucks or it's compelling, I have to at least have a basic understanding of what it is before I speak with authority on it. Something Cosmonaut clearly didn't do. He likes to speak with authority on stuff he didn't even understand himself.
And I'm going to be honest with you guys, I have never known the plot of this movie until now. Most of the times when I watch this movie, it's with friends where we just quote the awkward or funny moments until we get bored and turn it off halfway through. But as far as the plot goes, I am only just now piecing it together after having watched this movie for 20 years. That is not a good sign. But hey, maybe it's just me, right? Maybe I'm the dumbass who just doesn't get it. So I even asked you guys on Twitter if you knew the plot of this movie. And most of you didn't. I actually expected most of you guys to lie or just check the wiki, but no, you guys were pretty honest for once. And I don't think this is because the plot is overly complicated. I mean, it is, but that's not why we don't understand it. It's because the plot is not conveyed properly to the audience. For a movie that's mostly just our characters telling us what they're going to do and then doing that thing with no diverging paths, this movie is really bad at conveying what the story is. The story is presented to us in a way where we cannot understand it unless we can read the minds of the characters. In this movie, information is conveyed in a very strange and vague way.
You're saying the information of the film is being conveyed in a very strange and vague way? Why? Because they speak differently from how they spoke in the original trilogy? They are the Jedi Order. They are trained monks. They aren't going to speak the way people speak in the original trilogy. People really need to grasp that.
Take, for example, the scene where Anakin is being interviewed by the Jedi Council. They ask him some random questions, and then they say, sorry, he's evil, we cannot train him. They say they sense fear in Anakin, and that is the main reason why he's not to be trained. So you're telling me you expect the kid to just not be scared at all? Wouldn't it make more sense to train someone to be less fearful than to just expect them to have the emotions of a Jedi once they get here? They know he's strong in the Force, but they still tell Qui-Gon that he can't train him. But what's the alternative? Just send him back home and hope he doesn't harness his inherent Force powers?
They ask him some random questions and say, sorry, he's evil. You, Cosmonaut, this is what I'm talking about. You have the most surface, not even, below the surface level of understanding of the damn film. First off, you sat there and regulated this entire scene to like one quote, with no information backing the scene, showing you didn't understand the scene whatsoever. In the scene in question, the Jedi are testing Anakin's emotions, seeing if he could handle wielding the Force and being trained, because the Jedi Order take people when they are very young. Since Anakin is already above that age, he's 10. So since he's 10, and not a young toddler or baby like they usually take them as, he has already been influenced by the outside world, and they tested and found that he couldn't handle or wield the Force or be trained to do due to these attachments. That's why they trained them at a much younger age. Therefore, they did not allow him in the Jedi Order at that time. So you didn't pay attention, and you made statements about the film that are untrue, showing you didn't even pay attention to a movie you're speaking with authority on it.
And Qui-Gon just says, oh, well, I'm just going to train him anyway. You're just allowed to do that? You can just do whatever you want? If you can do that, then why does anybody ask for permission?
The boy is dangerous.
Okay, but why? Literally just tell us why. Somebody please tell me something. Please, sir, may I have some movie?
The boy is dangerous. Tell us why. Tell us why. The movie explains why, because this midichlorian account, the thing you Plinkett fans complained about so much and didn't pay attention to, the midichlorian account of Anakin is over 10,000 midichlorians. He's extremely Force sensitive. hasn't been trained by the Jedi Order at a younger age and is basically out there, an untrained Force user, stronger, and has even higher midichlorian counts than even that of Master Yoda. That is a dangerous person with that much Force sensitivity is out there on their own with their family and has all this power unregulated. There goes the explanation again. Pay attention to the movie.
Even when you look at the finer details of the movie, there's shit that just doesn't make any sense. For instance, why would you bring Anakin to a war zone? Qui-Gon already has an apprentice, and now he just grabbed another one and brought him along to the war.
Anakin, stay where you are. We'll be safe there.
But
Stay in that cockpit.
You stay here.
But Rick!
No buts.
Also, why would you go down to Naboo in separate ships? It's kind of a throwaway line, and it ends up not mattering in the long run, but from a logistical standpoint, it doesn't make any sense. You guys could just go on the same ship. You're really fucking lucky they parked next to each other. What does Palpatine want to accomplish with this fucking trade blockade? This is his most roundabout and complicated plot ever, and he's already known for those.
So you claim that Palpatine's plan doesn't make sense. See, here's the thing. Cosmonaut has this annoying habit of speaking with authority on something that he claimed himself he doesn't even understand the plot to. Then he'll say something so stupid and has below surface level understanding. Dude, you just got on Palpatine's plan and got on it and said, oh, it's convoluted when you just...
He has no problem with killing the Jedi in the beginning, but he's just gonna try and convince Padme politely to accept his terms. He doesn't have any problem trying to kill her in the later movies. I don't understand this man.
You didn't even pay attention. Palpatine wanted to get in with the political interworkings and assume power. He acts different around Padme because she has political power. So if he acts a certain way around her, it wouldn't look good. He has to assume power through political means. He can't act like a Sith Lord to senators. Now, outside of the political circle, yes, he is a Sith Lord, so he'll do Sith Lord things outside of the political circle. This is why you can't listen to what these people say, because they aren't even paying attention to the character or movie or motivations. And yet, they'll say stuff about the story.
What does he even want?
What does he want? He wants political power, moron. Did you not pay attention? He's trying to assume power. Why do you think he's funding the Trade Federation? To assume power. By causing a war, forcing the council to put him in power. Pay attention to the film.
I always found it strange that Palpatine's ultimate goal is to just be president and rule everything. It seems like a really simple-minded goal for someone who's supposedly so wise and attuned to the Force. Normally, I don't really care if a villain's motivations are simplistic, especially in Star Wars. But this is a movie that's trying to be more complex than the previous films, and it's just not very good at it. The entire plot of all three of these movies revolve around Palpatine's schemes, and his schemes never make any sense.
He wants to assume power, such a simple goal. Dude, what? If you're in the political circle, why else would you be there other than to make changes, make a difference, and of course, assume power? Move up on the political circle. So you claim there was a flaw where none even existed, and you want me and others to take your word for it? I don't have a problem with a villain's motivations being simplistic. You moron, you just contradicted yourself. You just said yourself the villain's plans were complex, and it was overly convoluted. Now you're claiming it's simplistic. Make up your mind. Yes, the prequels are more complex, and the plan is complex. That's why he funded the Trade Federation, to indirectly start a war, forcing the council to let him assume power. That's very manipulative and complex. Then you went ahead and said, oh, it's so convoluted. Now you're saying it's so simplistic, contradicting yourself over and over.
There's also this thing with the prequels where you can sometimes take a single line and try to analyze it, and it just doesn't make any sense from a simple writing perspective.
You can take a simple line and analyze, and it doesn't make sense. Okay, prove it. What lines? You mean the negotiations were short? Whoa, my mind is blown. It's so difficult to fathom. What does it mean? Are you serious right now? Again, another Plinkett fanboy who isn't paying attention to the film.
I'm serious. This is in every single one of these movies.
A communications disruption can mean only one thing: invasion.
No, it doesn't. You're telling me that if your communications get messed up, the only reason is that you're being attacked?
A communication interruption can only mean one thing: an invasion. No, it doesn't. I'm so tired of hearing these Plinkett fanboys say that. In other movies, when they're talking into walkie-talkies or intercoms and communications die all of a sudden, they get worried that they either died or got captured. So they assume there's an ambush, but when the prequels does it, it's automatically condemned. You don't see the backwards level of bias?
You've made a commitment to the Jedi Order, a commitment not easily broken.
Not easily broken? You mean not easily maintained. The oath itself is very easily broken.
Only a Sith deals in absolutes.
But Obi-Wan, that in itself is an absolute statement.
Only a Sith deals in absolutes, but that in itself is an absolute. Shut the fuck up. What's annoying is that Cosmonaut, like many other fanboys, sits there and nitpicks things for seemingly no reason. Who in the flippity flying fuck cares? Oh no, the statement is an absolute. That's debatable, and it doesn't determine the validity of the film. So you're literally nitpicking things that are not that big a deal, dude, such as the invasion. Oh no, how could that automatically mean it's an invasion? The fact that you even brought these things up, even if you were to claim there was something off about it, it's one slight thing. Does that deter an entire movie? No. Also, other films did ambushes, so that was wrong anyway. And a Sith dealing in absolutes, being an absolute, is completely debatable, and it's not objective truth. So one is just wrong blatantly, the other is completely debatable, and you're making it like it's objective truth. Your word isn't gospel, and neither is Plinkett.
George is not good at writing dialogue. It would be very funny if it wasn't so sad.
George isn't good at writing dialogue. Shut up. First off, the fact that you're claiming he doesn't write good dialogue, yeah, you and every other Plinkett fan. However, he makes dialogue that is actually good. People don't acknowledge. But then if he makes a mistake or hiccup with like one line, they'll highlight that and then pretend like all these other lines weren't good. So when I hear that, I'm like, dude, get over yourself. All these other lines are actually well written, but you're just gonna highlight one or two hiccups. That's bias. You're choosing to see it that way. You're not acknowledging the moments where the dialogue works well for its characters and stories. Instead, you choose to highlight the hiccups in between that. And that is the definition of Cosmonaut's insipid bias.
And I should now probably mention the one thing people say is the biggest problem with this movie: Jar Jar. Honestly, all of the other issues in this movie are actually worse than Jar Jar. Lifeless performances, bad dialogue, a convoluted plot.
Convoluted plot, yeah. A plot you couldn't even explain yourself, yet you're speaking with authority on it. Wow. Lack of direction? Oh, you mean those cinematic shots inspired by movies like Blade Runner? Like the many shots in Attack of the Clones? Or the cinematic style that was inspired by old school movies during the Kubrick era? So lack of direction? Oh, and bad dialogue? The ability to speak does not make you intelligent. I thought you said the dialogue is bad. How many films do you know have that level of thought and intellect put into its dialogue? That's actually pretty clever and not even acknowledged. So the movie has all this and you're just gonna spout this? Like, wow.
And an overall lack of direction are all things that I hate way more than one dumb character. And if we're being real, while he's annoying, his role in the story actually makes more sense than Anakin's. The worst thing about Jar Jar is that you literally cannot understand what he's saying. I watched this movie with subtitles for the first time and I only now, 20 years later, have understood what the fuck Jar Jar has been saying.
You're so annoying. I thought you just said, oh, I'm not going to talk too much about Jar Jar because of all these quote-unquote issues are far more important, and yet you trash Jar Jar like everybody else. First off, yes, he has some over-the-top comedy in the movie. So what? It's not the entire movie, it's a few scenes. Plus, he also helps the characters and pushes the story forward. Then, throughout the trilogy, he even develops and is mainly off-screen. So why hop on the bandwagon when he's off-screen throughout the trilogy anyway? And even when he had some humor. But he also helped Padme and Qui-Gon formulate the Gungan Alliance to fight off the Trade Federation. I thought you said Jar Jar was just such and such, like many other Plinkett fans state. What about this? See, it's so annoying. You see, the problem with people like Cosmonaut and people like Red Letter Media fans, they always highlight the moments that had issues or hiccups with the films, but when the film does a good job with I'm talking multiple scenes, they will ignore that and pretend they don't exist. But oh, your precious new trilogy is just such a gem, and no one can talk badly about those. Even though they had ridiculously corny moments, that they had moments of really bad writing, they had moments where they rushed through plot points, but when the prequels has some issues and even flaws, they'll highlight that and not acknowledge what it got right. That is insipid bias. Bias you will find from Cosmonaut. Bias you will find from prequel haters. That is bias.
Mesa day starting pity okie day with the brisky morning munchin', then boom!
I have no fucking clue what you just said, but hell yeah, man, I'm gonna speak my truth.
But despite this, they actually need Jar Jar around for most of the movie. I really hate admitting it, but he's so integral to this dumb-ass story that you kind of need him here more than you need the other characters. However, it doesn't make any sense that you bring him into Mos Eisley with Qui-Gon, and not Obi-Wan Kenobi, one of the main characters. Actually, I take that back. I can't even say he's a main character in this movie. It is truly baffling to me how small Obi-Wan's role is in this movie.
Oh no, Obi-Wan didn't get much screen time as Qui-Gon and Jar Jar. So what? The screen time he did get was integral to the story and plot, so does it matter? No. What matters is not how much screen time a character gets, but their impact on the narrative, so the fact you even brought that up as a flaw is so stupid.
I think the only reason people are moved by Qui-Gon's death is because Qui-Gon gets way more screen time. He's closest to being the main character. And just think about how much characterization Obi-Wan has in episodes 2 and 3. In episode 2 and 3, you find out that he doesn't really like flying that much. That's kind of a cute character trait. I wish he had traits in this movie. The only character with traits in this movie is, again, Jar Jar. So yeah, while Jar Jar is really awkward and a fucking stupid addition to the movie,
the only character with traits in the movie is Jar Jar. Where are you getting this from? Qui-Gon Jinn, firm, intelligent, smart, and kinda slick. He can be quite sly with how he handles people when he's trying to accomplish his goals. It's incredible to see, and his characterization, this is how he is characterized. Padme, quite serious since she had an upbringing in the political game. However, she's quite the fury and decides to take matters into her own hands when the council wouldn't help her starving people, hence leading to the Battle of Naboo Theed, which she also helped orchestrate. What happened to, there's no chemistry, there's no depth, you don't see the characters on a deeper level. Once again, someone let their insipid bias get in the way of paying attention to the film.
yeah, while Jar Jar is really awkward and a fucking stupid addition to the movie,
Jar Jar's this and that. Cosmonaut trashes him again. Dude, who fucking cares? He's in the scene in the movie, but he doesn't take up the entire movie. You still get scenes with Padme. You still get scenes with Obi-Wan. You still get scenes with Anakin. You still get scenes with Qui-Gon, so who cares? Jar Jar also helped Padme and Qui-Gon form the Gungan Alliance. They had no army genius, so how else could they fight back the Trade Federation? Man, you're insipid bias. Cosmonaut, the thing about you is that you're so biased, and like other Red Letter Media fanboys, this dude lets his bias rule everything. If Jar Jar actually helps with the story, and also he's not present throughout the trilogy, does it really matter? No. Nitpicking like the few scenes where he says one line that you didn't like is just stupid when considering what other elements he contributed to the story. Yes, he's a little over the top, but he helped Qui-Gon and Padme formulate the Gungan Alliance, and wasn't present throughout the trilogy. So if he wasn't even present anyway, why even complain on this level? And when he was, if he helped, then what are you basing this on?
he's the only thing in the movie that feels real. Whenever I watch this movie and he shouts this line, I seriously wake up from the coma that this movie put me in. If he wasn't in the movie, I legitimately think the movie would be worse. Think about it. It would just be these dry humans delivering boring dialogue. It would be so boring that I don't think I'd be able to sit through it. Honestly, in order to fix this movie, you would need to reformat the entire plot.
In order to fix this movie, you need to reformulate the entire plot. First off, to reformulate the plot, you have to actually understand the story and plot itself, which you admitted after 20 years, you still don't. So how in the hell would you reform it? Go ahead, Cosmonaut. Since you're the cinematic expert, how would you do it? Oh wait, you probably wouldn't have the best idea considering you'd have to, I don't know, actually understand the plot, which you already claimed you didn't.
Everything is broken. Most people agree that the biggest problem here is that you can just delete this whole movie from the trilogy and it changes nothing. A lot of Star Wars viewing guides actually recommend that you just don't watch this movie. How sad is that? The spin-off movies are equally useless in the grand scheme of things, but those movies are fun and a little experimental, so I don't really mind them. They don't really hurt anybody by existing. This movie really hurts my feelings by existing. It just genuinely bothers me whenever I watch it.
You could just delete this entire movie from the trilogy and it changes nothing. What about Darth Maul and Qui-Gon's death? That helped change Obi-Wan into a wiser person. Notice how in A Phantom Menace he says another pathetic life form? Did he state anything like this in Attack of the Clones or Revenge of the Sith? No, that shows maturity over time.
Most people agree that the biggest problem here is that you can just delete this whole movie from the trilogy and it changes nothing.
Most people agree that the biggest problem here is that you can just delete this whole movie from the trilogy and it changes nothing.
Also, Anakin, he was a kid. You say at one point he was quite innocent, so to see Darth Vader himself as an innocent kid gives a whole new context to his character upon rewatching the original trilogy. Then the Clone Wars, guess what? Before the Clone Wars, they didn't have an army. So don't you think people need to see why the Jedi and Council needs clones to begin with? How did Palpatine start rising to power? Oh wait! All of this context, information, and essential information, I might add, is conveyed in A Phantom Menace. The very movie you just claimed needs to be deleted. Use your brain, genius. Use your brain.
Mental, so I don't really mind them. They don't really hurt anybody by existing. This movie really hurts my feelings by existing. It just genuinely bothers me whenever I watch it.
The spin-off movies are equally useless in the grand scheme of things. That's your opinion, and I thought you were the fanboy of Disney Star Wars. I'm defending Disney Star Wars? Whoa, that's a head fuck. However, many people, not me, but many love Rogue One. I didn't. However, it is widely regarded as one of the best Star Wars films of all time, and you claim it's pointless. People love it, and it gives context to what happens in A New Hope. So when you see A New Hope, you can understand this movie on a deeper level now. Then there's Solo. I actually like Solo, so if you're gonna sit there and talk that shit, we got a problem. Solo adds new context to who Han Solo was before he became Solo. Yes, the movie's not perfect, it's got its flaws, but it adds new layers to who Han Solo was before he became Han Solo, which you would never know if the movie didn't exist. Crazy that before A New Hope, Han Solo was not an anti-hero like he was in A New Hope. He was actually a little pure-hearted. He had a little more heart, and his humanity was different back then. This is only conveyed through the Solo movie. You would never know otherwise, so saying, oh, those are pointless is also wrong too. This movie really hurts my feelings by existence. Oh, boo-hoo, you will get over it. However, what you stated about it not needing to even exist was wrong, and you didn't base that with any proof or evidence, so way to go.
Bothers me whenever I watch it. There's no main character.
Oh my fucking god, my fucking god. Yes, there is a main character. Now the movie does take place from multiple perspectives, and that's the thing from insipid Plinkett fanboyism. They retort to the same argument over and over as if it's objectively, yes, the movie takes place from different perspectives, but there is a main character. Guess what? It's Qui-Gon Jinn. You know how I know? Because when he dies, the perspective of the movie shifts from him to Obi-Wan. But even with that being said, if the movie takes place from Padme's perspective, then Obi-Wan's perspective, then Qui-Gon's perspective, then who cares? It just takes place from different perspectives. There are other movies that do this. They didn't get condemned, so why even bring this up as a flaw? You're trashing a film over, oh no, who's the main character, and that's your problem, because you're the one that didn't know it was Qui-Gon. Yes, many people know it's Qui-Gon, because you follow him throughout most of the film. But again, even if you don't want to say it's Qui-Gon, it's still not an issue, because that would just mean that it takes place from multiple perspectives. So who cares?
The characters that are in this movie don't have any traits or personalities, and if you try to break this movie into a beginning, middle, and end, you would have trouble finding out where each part begins. Nothing in this movie works at all. This one is a really big disappointment, and if I was an adult when I watched this movie, I don't think I would even like Star Wars anymore. And the worst part is, we still have 2 more movies to go. 3 out of 10, I hope it doesn't get any worse than this.
3 out of 10? Didn't analyze the movie, didn't assess its characters, and didn't acknowledge its great moments, just nitpicks the issues, and 3 out of 10? You gave one of the most groundbreaking films on a cinematic level, one of the most thought-provoking and intelligent movies of our day, a 3 out of 10, and didn't even assess it or give it a fair shot and trashed it every 5 seconds, the same way Plinkett fanboys do? 3 out of 10 review.
Star Wars Episode 2 is basically as bad as The Phantom Menace. I tried pretty hard to figure out which one of these movies is worse, and I'm having a really hard time.
Attack of the Clones. Please no, not another insipid bias statement given with little research or information of the damn film. Oh god, not again, please shut up.
I tried pretty hard to figure out which one of these movies is worse, and I'm having a really hard time.
It's hard to believe, but are you aware that nobody gives a shit?
I'm really having a hard time figuring that out right now. Yeah, that's probably because you couldn't be bothered to read the damn title crawl. And also, you admitted yourself you didn't even understand the plot to A Phantom Menace. So what makes you think that feeble little head of yours could understand the plot of Attack of the Clones?
But I think if you held a gun up to my head and made me answer, I'd probably say that this one is marginally better.
Marginally better? No, suck my dick. Marginally better? Come on! No, it was one of the most coherent and cohesive Star Wars films, even in comparison to Empire Strikes Back, so that's not true. The characters have traits. They already had it in each film. Now all of a sudden you want to start acknowledging that? Dude, get over yourself. You think your word has so much authority when you didn't acknowledge what George Lucas got right. Now you want to throw a dog a bone? Get over yourself. Oh, they have some traits. Get the hell out of here. They already had it in each film. The story is absolute nonsense. Okay, prove it. What's wrong with Attack on the Clones story? Actually, here it is. The Jedi Council don't have a military force while the CIS is taking over more systems. Obi-Wan has to investigate the assassination attempt of Senator Amidala. Because of this attempt, Anakin is sent to protect her. However, things don't always go according to plan. So what's wrong with this plot? Is it because you didn't understand it? So because once again, you didn't get something, apparently it's objectively flawed just because you couldn't wrap your head around it.
The Phantom Menace is bad because it's boring and it doesn't really feel like a real movie, but technically once you figure out the story, it is sort of comprehensible. Then you compare this to Attack of the Clones, where structurally it feels like more of a real movie. The characters have traits, there's a few cute interactions, but nothing the characters do make any sense, and the story is absolute nonsense. But for what it's worth, this movie is way more entertaining to watch because it is just a hot mess. It's probably the worst plot in the entire Star Wars saga, to the point where I could spend this whole review just explaining the story and you would fully understand what I mean. So that's exactly what we're gonna do. So the movie starts off and tells us this.
There is unrest in the Galactic Senate. Several thousand solar systems have declared their intentions to leave the Republic.
Okay.
Title card joke. Damn it, that was funny.
Okay, but joking aside, this is supposed to be the main driving force for the plot. These separatists don't want to be part of the Republic. But why not? Well, I hope you are prepared to die with that question in your mind because this movie is not interested in telling us. Maybe go read one of the books or something. Alright, so the rest of the crawl tells us that the Jedi are overwhelmed by the separatists. But overwhelmed how? The separatists aren't hurting anybody. There aren't any battle droid attacks at this point. The first thing the Jedi say in this movie is that Dooku and the separatists aren't violent and they just have different political leanings. So why are the Jedi overwhelmed? Why do we need to create an army? What do you mean by civil unrest? Well, I hope you are prepared to die with these questions in your head because this movie has no interest in telling you why any of these things are happening. But whatever, that shit doesn't matter. We just need Padme in the city so she can get blown up. So in this movie, Palpatine is trying to kill Padme. But why? Well, it's because Padme is here to vote against creating a military force for the Republic. And I guess Palpatine doesn't really want that because he has his own army and he wants to control it. But the assassination attempts just stop about a third of the way through the movie.
Why are the Jedi overwhelmed? Why do we need an army? Because, genius, the CIS is taking over multiple systems. That's why. Also, they need an army, so while you were busy making fun of the title crawl, you didn't even pay attention to the film. Read the title crawl before making jokes about a movie and making objective statements. Read the title crawl. The assassination attempt stopped through a third of the movie. No, she's in hiding, genius. So since she's hiding, they can't find her like they did on Coruscant. Watch the movie. But he needs to kill Padme in order to get the other army, the clones. But he needs to kill Padme in order to get the other army, the clones. Yes, genius, because Padme is trying to stop him from making the clones. The clone army is needed to fight the droids. He needs both so they can wage war and can assume a higher position of power. Without war, there'd be no reason to give him more power. This is why he needs both armies to fight, but she's getting in the way of that, so he wants to kill her. He still wants Anakin to protect her. No, he's keeping up with appearances. He has to still assume the role of a political leader. He can't just be blatantly open about his plan, dude. Really stupid. You see, moments like this show you didn't even pay attention to the film you're talking about. You're saying there's holes in it? What? That's actually kind of brilliant. He's formulating two armies, having them fight each other. Then he'll end the war he started so he could assume power. Now, when you say there's holes, no plan's perfect, but you actually saying it's stupid, like it's flawed, that the movie wrote it, that's how you're making it seem. So what I'm saying is that no plan like that is actually... I'll cut that part about... So what I'm saying, that is actually pretty well written, especially for a Star Wars movie. It's actually kind of brilliant that they wrote that in the movie.
But he messes up and doesn't kill her. But that's okay. He actually wants Anakin to get close to her and fall in love, but then he tries to have her killed anyway right after that. You're really lucky that none of these Pokemon ate her, because then Anakin would just be a good guy forever and your plan wouldn't work. So anyway, it doesn't matter. Padme doesn't matter. He unveils both armies at the same time and he makes them fight each other secretly. And over the next few years, he orchestrates an entire war between two armies that he secretly funded so that people will democratically vote for him to be king of space, so that he can end the war that he started with his 2 secret armies, and then as King of Space, he kills all the Jedi and gets rid of both armies. And then he rules for like 20-ish years, and then Anakin throws him in a hole and he dies. There are so many holes in that plan that I don't even have time to break it all down. It would take an entire video. It would actually be better for the story if you told me he couldn't predict the fucking future, because this plan reads like it's made by someone who can't. So anyway, Obi-Wan and Anakin go to protect Padme, and I love how the first person to talk in this scene is Jar Jar. I also love how he literally stops, looks at the camera, and smiles, as if to say, "That's right, fuckers, I'm not going anywhere." I'd also like to point out that while we now have more scenes of characters actually having heart-to-heart conversations, they're all awful because they're written in the most unnatural way.
The original trilogy had so many corny moments where the dialogue was not just impeccable or perfect the way people make it seem, but they always get the free pass. With the prequels, oh no, they sound like they're in outer space, look out the horror. So what? Yes, they sound different, that's the point. They're in a star system billions of light years away. What did you expect? So annoying, shut up already.
For the most part, this movie has some pretty good actors, and they have no way to make this awful dialogue sound natural.
I don't know why I keep dreaming about him.
Dreams pass in time.
I'd much rather dream about Padme.
What the fuck? So Padme, the woman who just had an assassination attempt less than a day ago, sleeps in her room alone with giant windows with the blinds open. So obviously under these circumstances, she's basically begging to be assassinated. And the following scene is probably the funniest shit in the whole movie. So this little probe droid sends in little poison bugs to kill Padme, but our heroes catch it right in the nick of time. And then Obi-Wan fucking jumps out the window. What is his plan? What's his endgame here? And why is he the one who jumped out the window? Anakin just got done talking about how much he loves Padme and how he's obsessed with her. So I'd almost accept this if Anakin was the one who jumped out the window. Isn't he supposed to be the brash, headstrong apprentice who acts without thinking? But then the worst part is that later, Obi-Wan gets mad at Anakin for doing the same thing. He has no right to get upset when Anakin jumps out of the fucking car. He's like, "Oh, my apprentice is so headstrong and stupid and he acts without thinking." Bro, 2 minutes ago, you jumped out the window to grab a tiny robot. You are lucky to be alive.
Obi-Wan jumps out the window. Yes, he does. Here we go with this shit. Yes, Obi-Wan jumps out the window. He's not perfect, remember? When he stated in A New Hope or Return of the Jedi, he was young once too. He wasn't perfect. Yoda said Luke was this and that, and Obi-Wan stated so was I, if you remember. Look at that. That's how you know the movies pieced together with the original trilogy. But you guys claim they could be erased? Whole films should not be canon? But great contextual connections like this would be missing. Yes, he jumps out the window, because when Obi-Wan was younger, he wasn't perfect. Well, this was Tarragon, and I'm refuting Cosmonaut's claims about the prequels. Thank you for watching.